Clemson's Greatest Games is brought to you by Roto-Rooter. When you need a local plumber fast, call Roto-Rooter. And by First National Bank. Find a branch or ATM near you at fnb-online.com.
From the pocket, looks down the field to Theon Kane, and he collects it for a Clemson touchdown. Clemson in the pocket, shoots it downfield for Kane again, who makes a diving catch for the touchdown. And taking a shot, losing the ball. Clemson's got it. Watson kicks it, pitches it across the middle. Touchdown, Williams. Forsyth out of the backfield, didn't see him and throws a pick. Slant, Scott. Fight spring and walks in. A 1-2 punch from the Tigers.
Georgia Bulldogs taking on the Clemson Tigers to start 2013. When I think of the storyline coming into this game, it's all about the hype, right? First of all, opening game of the season is always going to be a big one. Next, the Georgia-Clemson rivalry has always historically been a very big one, a heated rivalry that fans look forward to, and they hadn't played a lot in the years leading up to this 2013 matchup.
A lot of excitement, a lot of hype, having two big-time programs back-to-back, essentially, when I reflect back on summer and thinking about the preparation for that game, the excitement for that game. You work just a little bit harder. You're assuming both teams are going to be in the top 10. It eventually came true, Georgia being number 5, Clemson number 8 in the country.
There was such a buzz in the air around Clemson, Georgia in 2013. Anytime when Clemson and Georgia get together, there's no doubt about it, that's a rivalry that goes way back. But the Tigers had just beaten LSU in the Chick-fil-A Bowl, and so Clemson was riding high, feeling really good going into 2013, 2 straight 10-win seasons.
First of all, when you walk out of the locker room and you start walking, up towards the bus, you can hear obviously the stadium, and you can almost feel the energy in the stadium, which for you, gets you as a player excited, obviously.
And really, we knew that ESPN was going to try a couple of new things for that game. There was going to be a couple of more cameras, a couple of extra things. And again, when you look at the season and you look at that game specifically, they put a camera on the bus.
Walking up to the bus and, you got all the fans around you outside that aren't even going in the game. They're just so dadgum excited about this game. They are willing to stand outside and watch it on TV. That's how great of a game this is.
They had police backing people up so we could go. People are pushing the bus. We're rocking back and forth. And guys were excited. People were screaming, jumping up and down.
You get on that bus, and regardless of how chaotic it is around you, it's silent on that bus. This is the one time that we get a chance to really own in our thoughts and get focused before we open up those bus doors and that gate opens. And so, you come around that bend and, you got people crossing the street, screaming, knocking on the bus, the whole deal, and it's still silent. And then you pull up to that rock. You got the security guys that open up the gate, they open up the bus doors, and then it just explodes. Everything just goes into complete chaos, man. And, you're running down, your head's down, you got people smacking you on the helmet.
I think there was as much stress about getting down the hill after touching Howard Rock as there was calling the game. There was a lot of energy, and you see that's why it's the most exciting 25 seconds of college football. That was pretty crazy.
And then I remember some of the Georgia players, most of them, ran over to the hill. And we're kind of looking at the Clemson guys, taunting them a little bit. So everyone was so fired up for that game specifically.
There was so much energy on those buses that once we got to the hill, it was so electric. Guys were antsy. You can see the videos of the strength coaches just holding everybody back. And then Georgia, who seemingly was waiting at the bottom of the hill for us, it was picture perfect. And the way that ESPN, ABC captured that, it was just really cool to be a part of.
If you remember, Musburger on the PA system said, 25 years ago, I said that this was the greatest 25 seconds in all of college football, and so here it is. And then that line that he had on television, even Georgia had to take a peek. All of that, the pageantry was there. Night in the Valley, opening game. It was on. People were ready to get this one going.
Founders Federal Credit Union is your credit union. We are devoted to serving you through good and bad, and through highs and lows. We are committed to standing by you, our members, our communities, our family. Together, we can persevere through these times. We are your credit union, and we are here for you. Relax with Founders Federal Credit Union.
My dad was a Cuban refugee, and school wasn't really an option for him. He'd always encourage me and my sisters. He'd say, try different things, if you want to be an artist, if you want to be a painter or musician, go for it. Because I received a South Carolina Education Lottery Scholarship, I didn't have to worry about the bulk of my tuition. And that's priceless.
Roto-Rooter Zero Contact Service is your assurance that we're putting safety first. On the job, we'll keep a safe distance, wear boot covers, face masks, disposable gloves, and other protective gear. We're following CDC guidelines, washing hands, and disinfecting touch points. And we'll put on fresh gloves before handling your paperwork and credit cards. You can depend on Roto-Rooter to lead the way in safety with Zero Contact Service.
After all the anticipation, waiting throughout the summer for the first game of the season, it's time. It's game time. But was this going to live up to the hype? A lot of times we see these games where it's a heavyweight matchup and they have to feel themselves out and it's a slow start. Well, this game was definitely not a slow start.
So what I remember from that game, first thing was it was my first college game ever. Home game at Clemson. It was a night game, so I was pretty nervous.
Starting the game, feeling each other out, really just getting that excitement out. And it's funny how building up all that emotion, it can lead one or two ways. Either you have great production, you score right away, or there's so much energy and you kind of stall out a little bit. You got to regather yourself. And I think that's what happened to really both teams.
After an exchange of punts to open the game, Taj Boyd led the Tigers down the field, and then he scored on a 4-yard run to put Clemson up 7-0. The Tigers kick off, Georgia takes over on their own 25, and on the first play, Todd Gurley runs through the Clemson line and just keeps on going, showing his Pro Bowl speed that we've seen today, 75 yards to tie the score.
When Todd Gurley ran that ball back, the air came out of the stadium, and you're thinking, okay, this is not going to be as easy as we thought, right? We're going to have to actually settle into this game, settle into the reality of the game. We can't just win this on momentum and excitement and energy.
And I think that kind of just set the tone for really the rest of the game of, hey, this is going to be a back and forth. It's going to be a fight. So you better settle in, strap in, and it's going to be a long night.
And then insert our own freak of nature, Sammy Watkins, who right after that, takes a screen pass or a slant and goes to the distance. I mean, he bounces off of a guy, takes it to the house, and the electricity was right back.
In a foot race, Watkins goes, touchdown! Oh my!
When Sammy Watkins first, here he is coming out in the first quarter, this huge play that's just been made by Todd Gurley for Georgia. Here we are, kickoff. Sammy has this incredibly explosive 77-yard touchdown right in the first quarter after he straight mans this guy, knocks him down coming down the field.
I mean, I've never seen someone run through someone full speed like Sammy did. He catches a little bang eight and just runs through a safety full speed and doesn't even slow down. He just re-accelerates and scores. And that was one of those things where it's like, okay, Sammy's back to Sammy.
When you see me ride him in there, I kind of skip a little bit, like it's like a delayed hitch. And at that point, I'm not that tall. I mean, I'm only 6 foot and 3/4. My whole life, people told me I was 6'2", And so you got bodies flying all over the place. You got hands flying all over the air. And so, how do I find a way to get this ball in the zone? And Sammy was so explosive and so fast that, if you're off this much, you miss him. I mean, you throw it in the dirt, you throw it behind him, and it was that close to that happening, That's why he caught it. I was like, oof. But I mean, I'm in there. I'm riding him all the way in there, boom, pull out, and then I'll just get it there as quick as I know how. And
I think Sammy Watkins is the most electric player to ever play at Clemson, and he changed countless games, but that was a huge play against Georgia.
At that point, they allowed us to get back in it, get some momentum to capture, and especially the magnitude of it. I mean, Sammy actually ran over one of the guys, so it really got the crowd, it got the team, you could just feel the energy.
That right there was what Clemson, Georgia was all about. It was about fireworks. It was about screaming and hollering. It was about big plays. And it was about star power.
They're down a goal now. They're going to play quarterback. Motion. Taj looking to throw. Daylight runs, bangs toward the end zone. And the touchdown. Battles his way in.
The game is obviously living up to the hype. 21 all at halftime. Now the biggest question is, what type of adjustments are going to be made at halftime? And also, just from the perspective, can both teams keep up this type of pace in the second half?
This segment was brought to you by First National Bank, helping businesses and individuals achieve their financial goals.
We're behind people rising to the challenge and neighbors looking after neighbors. We're behind small businesses with big ideas and struggling companies looking towards tomorrow. At First National Bank, we're behind every part of our community. We're working around the clock to ensure you have all the financial guidance and resources you need. And no matter what the future holds, you'll find us right where we've always been, behind you all the way.
Don't wait for tomorrow. Make the days count. Gatorade has carbs to fuel and electrolytes to help replenish, so you can count on the proven formula. Nothing beats Gatorade.
All tied at halftime, coming into the third quarter. This was one of those games, though, where you didn't see many Tiger fans leave the stadium for halftime. I think everybody stayed because they knew that this was an epic battle and they didn't want to miss any of the action, and that's what we saw in the second half.
The score by Clemson right there before halftime was pivotal. It gave them a little bit of momentum going into the halftime locker room. It also, hey, 30 minutes of play isn't what this is all about. Clemson football always has been since those commandments came out. Clemson football is 60 minutes or whatever it takes.
Offensively, we felt like we were in a great place. We knew the explosion that we had, the athletes that we had. Roderick McDowell's having a great game. Seemingly every time he touches the ball, it's 5 yards, 6 yards, 10 yards. And just every time he gets it, we're moving.
So the Tigers took the lead 28-21 in the third quarter. A beautiful catch by Zach Brooks, kind of on a wheel route. Brooks was really a good receiver coming out of the backfield, and Taj Boyd took advantage of it.
Whoever was guarding Zach, he's holding him off and really holding that line. And so two things are going to happen. Either Zach's going to catch it or it's going to be a pass interference.
Into the floor as Ryan Norton was hurt, so Webster is forced to snap that ball back to Taj. Perfect. Taj downfield. Caught. Touchdown. Zach Brooks. I don't know what was more impressive, the throw by Taj Boyd or the snap by 77 Reed Webster. Come on into this.
So Georgia drove down to the Clemson 2-yard line where it's 4th and goal. And Mark Richt decided, let's go ahead and tie this game up. Figured it was a chip shot, just like an extra point, but it ended up really being the key play of the game.
This is the time our defense had blocked a lot of field goals in the past. We had a bunch of defensive linemen that, could get through there, big guys, tall guys, love blocking a field goal. Well, the snap gets muffed, and we're all jumping up and down. I remember being on the sideline watching it, throwing my helmet, just screaming like, he dropped it. Our guys surround him, and really that's what it took. It took some type of turnover, some type of big play. When you're in these huge games and these huge moments, there's that defining thing that you think about, and really, I mean, for both of us to have gone back and forth so much for that big play, I mean, that was almost the moment of the game.
Then in the fourth quarter, Clemson worked a nice drive that ended in this touchdown pass. Boyd found Stanton Seconder over on the right side, and Seconder made a beautiful dive for the goal line.
And I knew Stanton was athletic enough to either make a move or to try to just go through him. And Stanton surprised us all and decided to leap for it almost 5 yards out. I mean, just seeing him soar through the air, stretching that ball out. And it was just unbelievable.
He ends up putting it on me, and I remember looking, kind of turning my head, seeing the sideline as I'm turning, and looking at the pylon and saying, I got one more step, and then I gotta make a reach at it, because I'm, all my momentum's now going towards the sideline.
It's third down and goal. Donald's trying to hold on. They've settled for a field goal right now. Boyd fires it, dive, no, short of the end zone. Gonna be marked at the 2-yard line. Instant replay.
Yeah.
Gonna take a look at this.
His left foot stays in the air. That's a touchdown.
That's a touchdown.
After further review, the runner did not step out of bounds. It is a touchdown.
There was 7:40 to go in this game. That drive of 12 plays, 86.
And at the press box at the time, it occurred to me that this key touchdown was scored by number 81 on a day that Clemson was honoring Danny Ford, going into the Ring of Honor, who, of course, won the national championship in 1981. And actually, the first person to congratulate Seconder on the play was Sharon Peak, who wore number 19. And I received many pictures of 19 and 81 in the correct order that were sent to my inbox after that game.
The game finally finishes, and I know I was exhausted. And I know every other Clemson fan in the stands that night were exhausted. It was a hot day. We'd had all this anticipation leading up throughout the whole summer, the first game of the season. It took all of Clemson, from the players to the fans, to win this game.
This segment was brought to you by Roto-Rooter. When you need a local plumber fast, call Roto-Rooter.
Roto-Rooter Zero Contact Service is your assurance that we're putting safety first. On the job, we'll keep a safe distance, wear boot covers, face masks, disposable gloves, and other protective gear. We're following CDC guidelines, washing hands, and disinfecting touch points. And we'll put on fresh gloves before handling your paperwork and credit cards. You can depend on Roto-Rooter to lead the way in safety with Zero Contact Service.
So, what makes your house a home?
Sitting on the front porch, relaxing at the end of the day.
Hands down, my wife's spaghetti.
A sense of security.
I'd say making it my own.
Playing with my son, definitely.
Or whatever makes your house a home, we're here to protect it.
When America needed us to build, we built. Masks, ventilators, shields. When frontliners needed support, Ford dealers answered. And now we're open and ready to serve you. With exciting special offers and deals across the Ford lineup. Stop by a Ford dealership or go online. We've made it safer to shop, easier to buy. Now get 0% financing for 84 months on a 2019 Ford F-150. Contact your Carolina Ford dealer today.
Clemson holds on to win this game 38-35, back and forth the entire game. What a football game. But for me personally, I was living down in Atlanta at the time. So I had listened all summer long to Georgia Bulldog fans literally barking in my ear about how Georgia was going to dominate Clemson. So as I saw all of Clemson Nation flooding out onto the field after the game, I was relieved, a was also very satisfied knowing I had bragging rights over my friends and neighbors.
Much like everybody else in the stadium, when you realize you're going to win, they're ready to storm the field, right? And I can remember our coach let us pack up all of our stuff early, and we are standing holding hands at the edge of the field, just ready to storm onto the field before anybody else could even jump the wall or whatever. We were there, bags on, packed up, just ready to absolutely run 4 flat onto the field and celebrate this gigantic win against Georgia. So if I remember anything else, it's but that lean, just waiting, grabbing the hands of my teammates, ready to storm the field and celebrate.
I remember that was the most fans I'd ever seen run on the field, which there's always a lot, but it just seemed like you couldn't move. It was a bunch of sardines on that 100-yard football field. And I remember seeing Taj after the game and just so happy because, he's friends with Aaron Murray and, they went to these different competitions together. So for him to be able to, one up his friend in that environment it was really special.
It always seemed that Taj Boyd, whenever he had games like this, that he would rise to his best. And he did. I thought that, for the opening game of a season, it would be pretty difficult to look at another quarterback in Clemson history that would come out and have a better game on this kind of stage against that kind of quality opponent than the one that Taj had.
Now, I'm not saying beating Georgia is the equivalent of winning the national championship, but bragging rights for a whole year with a fan base that frankly tends to think their team's a little better than they are at times, a fan base that a lot of Clemson fans don't like, a fan base that is big. There's a lot of Georgia fans. You live in close proximity around them. They're always trying to play the SEC, ACC card. And the other thing I remember from that game was chanting ACC at the end of it with the rest of the stadium because that was Clemson's second straight win over a ranked SEC opponent. And just rubbing that in Georgia's face was a lot of fun.
To see the 13 campaigns start this way, to see Clemson be able to explode for the amount of offense that they were able to explode, big explosive plays in this game. You also had sustaining drives in the contest as well. Clemson actually was able to win the time of possession battle in this game against Georgia. So all of those things, I think, were, just kind of moments that you're going to mark, you're going to highlight in this Clemson build of the program to where they are now.
You get into the locker room and we're in there dancing. Having a good time, because this is what we've been working for, and Coach Swinney says all the time, the fun's in the winning. And whenever you win like that in a big ball game like that, you're going to have a lot of fun. And so just going in there celebrating with your teammates, dancing, cutting up, and just really being rewarded for all your hard work it's really fun, especially in a big game like that.
It gets me a little nostalgic for those times before Clemson was the superpower that they are. The Tigers were still a top 25 team when they beat Georgia, don't get me wrong, but those wins were harder to come by, and it felt like they were harder to get, and so I think they were even sweeter when they did happen.
An incredible win for the Clemson team, a statement victory in front of the entire country, and all the hype leading up to this game, all the pregame theatrics were so fantastic, and getting this win over Georgia, a big turning point for Dabo and this program, and I think for Clemson Nation, as they could see that this program was on the rise, and you could kind of start to finally get a glimpse of what this program could become, and that's why this is one of Clemson's greatest games.
Clemson's Greatest Games is brought to you by Roto-Rooter. When you need a local plumber fast, call Roto-Rooter. And by First National Bank. Find a branch or ATM near you at fnb-online.com.